What's up everybody, Serenity here, and today I'm bringing you my Blitz guide, so let's get into it. As per usual, I'm going to start with the loadout. So you only have one primary and it's the flash shield. You only have one secondary and that's the P12. The P12 is actually pretty good, it has a lot of bullets and that's what's important on shield operators. Obviously here I'm using the laser sight and no suppressor. And in the gadget category you have the smoke grenades and the breaching charges. Now that decision you're going to be making it in game because it all depends on your plan. As per usual, I'm going to talk about it in the gameplay section of the video. And to finish out the loadout, you obviously have high armor and low speed, making you very tanky. Blitz's special ability is the flash shield. It's basically a shield with a very powerful camera flash that's going to flash your opponents, just like a stun grenade would. Note that you have 5 charges, so you can use it 5 times per round. Now, the range is very small, so you have to be really close to the enemy, but that's not a big issue since you have a shield, right? You're gonna be up close anyway. This is how much the shield covers you, and as you can see, when you're moving, they can shoot your feet. They can always shoot your right hand that's holding the gun, and if an enemy that's standing up is close to you, and you're crouched, he can see the top of your head. So the lesson here is if an enemy is standing up, you want to stand up, and if he's crouching, you want to crouch, because you'd much rather take bullets in your feet than in your head. Oh, and by the way, when you aim down sight and when you reload, you're almost completely exposed. And the last thing I want to talk about before the gameplay is this timing right here. With the correct timing, you can shoot very precisely without exposing your head for a long period of time. Now, this is very hard to do and very punishing if you miss, so it requires a lot of practice. But if done correctly, it can be extremely powerful. Alright, so let's talk about Blitz. Blitz is not an operator that requires insane twitch abilities and reflexes. He is all about micro decisions, like should I try to go for headshots with the timing? Should I hip fire? And if I miss hip firing, is there a place for me to reload? Should I get closer to flash him? Should I stand up? Should I stay crouched? Should I pull back completely? And so on. When playing Blitz, you'll be asking these questions over and over again because there are so many possibilities available to you. A good Blitz player is not going to be the one shooting better, but instead the one taking the decisions faster than the others. Of course, aiming well will make you better, but that alone won't make you a good Blitz player. Alright, so let's talk about each possibilities when facing an enemy that's too far away to get flashed. So you can go for the timing or hip fire. I would recommend hip firing if you have a lot of bullets left and you have solid cover on your sides. That way you can empty the mag and get safe for reload behind cover. If you don't have cover, however, and you really have to engage, you can't go for hip fire because 9 times out of 10 you're not gonna kill the guy. And then after that, you're kinda screwed because you have an empty pistol in your hand, and if the enemy is not panicking, he's gonna know that that pistol is empty. If the enemy is very close to you, it's almost always a good decision to flash him first, because after that, it's very hard to mess it up. You just have to stay alive while he's emptying his mag in panic, and then you aim down sight for the kill. I would often recommend to not go for melee kills on enemies that are flashed because some players start knifing periodically after they empty the mag, and if you get too close, you might die from that. Oh, and here's a quick tip. Go sideways after you've flashed the enemy. You'll have more chance of getting out of their cone of fire. And in the rare cases where the enemy is not looking at you, do not go for hip fire. Simply aim and go for the head. I see a lot of Blitz players go for the mega overkill and they flash the enemy that's not even looking at them, hip firing like crazy. That's obviously not necessary. I want to talk about shields in general and positioning. A lot of people seem to think that shields are great at entering rooms packed full of enemies, but that's not entirely true. If you're playing against half-decent opponents, as soon as they will hear the shield, they will create crossfire, rendering shields completely useless. Remember, Blitz's shield is pretty much flat. It's not curved around you. You can't push into crossfire. Your shield is only going to be useful when facing a single enemy or multiple enemies that are lined up. So your role is to find and isolate single enemies. After that's done, it should be a pretty easy fight as there's no crossfire possible. Since most of those isolated enemies will be roamers, it will be very dangerous to get to them as you'll make a lot of noise and you're really predictable. So you need to pair up with someone that can watch your back. So when you're playing shields, you should almost always be with a battle buddy that has a good AR, like Twitch for example. That way, it's gonna make your job a lot easier. I mean, when you're paired up with a friend and you guys have a lot of synergy together, you will become very powerful as you won't have to do the killing. Your job becomes to find and flash the enemy and then report his position to your friend for an easy kill. It is very hard to play shields alone, but if you do, use a lot of drones and find isolated enemies that are easy to get to. And that's why I would recommend to keep your preparation phase drone alive. Trust me, you will need it. You need to use a lot of drones when playing shields because your positioning has to be top notch at all times. The biggest enemies when playing shields are operators with nitro cell. To avoid them, you have to listen very carefully to the sound they make when they take the nitro cell in their hand. It sounds like this. Here it is in game. This sound means run because if you wait to see the nitro cell before you run, you're literally gonna die every single time. Let's talk about positioning. As soon as you see a fight happening in a staircase or, people exchanging shots through a trapdoor, know that you won't be of any use there. Just go find something else to do, as you'll most likely gonna die from a shot to the head or feet. Also, I would not recommend to use a door that's located in the middle of a wall since you have both sides to worry about. To reduce the amount of crossfire, make your own door with breaching charges at the corner of the room. That way you won't have to turn your shield left and right to clear the room, making you a lot less vulnerable. Let's talk about smoke grenades versus breaching charges. The smoke grenades are very good at cancelling crossfire if you throw them on the enemies. Now, don't ever smoke the entry point you'll be using thinking that you'll go in safely, because the enemies will be able to see you quite easily and you will be completely blind. That's just the way smoke grenades work in this game. I would say that if you're playing with a friend, you should probably go for smoke grenades as he can carry the breaching charges himself. If you're playing alone, then unfortunately you can't afford to use smoke grenades because they will force you to use the front door, which means walking in the crossfire. I would not recommend you carrying the breaching charges and a friend carrying stun grenades because it's really redundant with the shield and you can do that yourself. I would like to talk about some interesting facts for Blitz. So the head's hitbox is absolutely messed up and the big noise protection headphones are actually part of the head. However, I'm pretty sure they're gonna fix that. Second fact, Blitz is very good at escorting the hostage because he puts his shield on his back, making it very hard for the defenders to shoot at him. Of course, they can shoot the legs, but that won't do a lot of damage with 3 armor. When you get meleeed as a shield, you get knocked back for a short period of time, making you vulnerable to a second melee strike. So try to always melee first. And the final fact is that when you're standing on top of a jammer, you can't use the flash on your shield because it's jammed from it. I'm not sure what Ubisoft was thinking there because it looks like it's wired and a jammer doesn't do anything to wired devices, but anyway, I'm not here to criticize, that's just how it is. Alright guys, I covered everything I wanted to talk about. So in conclusion, Blitz is all about split-second decision making. However, don't sweat it. It will take some time and experience to consistently make the right decision quickly enough. Also, Blitz is amazing in 1v1s, and so if you can find isolated enemies, you should almost always go for them. If you want to push into an objective, make sure you're clear of any crossfires, either by throwing smoke grenades on the enemies or by making a new door with the breaching charge. And finally, make sure you find a battle buddy because Blitz has so much potential being a quote-unquote support operator. Just don't forget to use the flash a lot and your buddy should get the job done. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I recently started streaming on twitch.tv/serenity17 and last night we had a blast, so go and follow me on there if you want to be notified when I go live. I will also make a video on the channel telling you that I stream on Twitch to make sure no one misses out. Alright, thank you for all the kind words guys, and as per usual, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon. Choosing between roaming and doing the battery trick is 100% map dependent. If you're playing on the map where you absolutely need to keep that front door shut, for example house and consulate, then I would recommend doing the battery trick. If you're playing on a map where it's not that big of a deal, for example clubhouse in Oregon, I would recommend roaming. What I think they should be doing is use the cluster charge to make the people move around. While they're moving around, they are very vulnerable to you, so peek in, breach in, do whatever you have to do, but get line of sight on them because it's at this precise moment that they are the weakest, and so you should exploit this by engaging right then and there. If you use the cluster charge before breaching in, they're just gonna run away and then go back to their highly organized position, and you really don't want to engage that because you don't have to.